Gentlemen, hello, first video of 2026. So obviously, what do we say at this time of year? In January? Well, yes, Happy New Year, good health, a little bit of money, and may your projects come to fruition. There you go. I hope everything goes well in this year, 2026. And above all, the most important thing, if you want to buy a car, buy a reliable car. And if you already have a car and you want to keep it for a long time, well, take good care of it. I mean, you can't do better than that. And by doing that, we start the year off right. And of course, even more so if under the hood you have, as you saw in the thumbnail, a PureTech, an N47 from BMW, a THP, an EcoBoost from Ford, or even a TCE from Renault. And by the way, today in this video, we're going to do just that, to start 2026 off right, to feel good, so that you feel good, so that you have all the advice you need. We're going to do a little recap of the things you need to know about these engines. If you want to buy one in 2026, good luck. Or if you already have one and you want to know how to maintain it properly to avoid having problems. Even though with some engines it's hard not to have problems, but it can happen. So, it's kind of an update, okay, just to see if some have become more reliable in the meantime, or if that's not the case. And of course, obviously, to help you. Helping you use them correctly as well. Usage is very important. I would say it's 50% of an engine's reliability. It's the way you use it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you. So let's get started. So we'll start with the one and only engine of the year at the time, the 1.2 PureTech 110, 130, 136 horsepower. I'm telling you, I'll give you a quick reminder about maintenance, how to use these PureTech engines to avoid problems. And were there any updates, modernizations or modifications to make them more reliable? And we'll talk about that for all the engines in this video. Of course, that's very important. I'm counting on you, my friends, in the comments. For those who have had problems, go ahead, enjoy yourselves. That will allow you to let out some of that anger in the comments. Go ahead. Don't hesitate. Honestly, that's very important. On our end, we check to see if we're not talking too much nonsense. So, the known problems, we know them. A big issue with the 1.2 PureTech is the timing belt that runs in oil. Over time, it deteriorates. It clogs the oil strainer, the oil pressure drops. And that's when the engine says goodbye, sometimes even before 50,000 kilometers. On top of that, of course, because problems like this never come alone, there are also fragile turbos and a few injection problems as well. Since 2023, the new HN generation has fixed the timing belt problem, obviously, but we still have the issue of piston ovalization. The cylinder liner causes the engine to consume oil in astronomical amounts sometimes. So, I still like to point out that not every PureTech engine in the world breaks down. If all Stellantis PureTech engines had failed, Stellantis would have been finished long ago, even though they lost a lot of money last year. But still, there are some PureTech engines that work. Bastian has a 208 GT line with a year-old PureTech engine. And for now, there are no problems. I just wanted to point that out. There will always be people who haven't had any problems, obviously. But with the huge number of engines, there are more problems with PureTech than with other engines. So, how do you make your PureTech last a long time? First of all, forget about waiting for the dashboard to beep for maintenance. With these engines, you need to do maintenance right on time, change the oil more frequently, and always use top quality oil. The goal is to limit degraded oil, because that doesn't help the timing belt. In real life, an oil change every year or every 10,000 kilometers is a very good idea for a PureTech. And actually, for all other engines too. And even more so, if you do a lot of city driving with the PureTech. And of course, you have to be strict about using the recommended oil specification. Don't use something that's almost the same, okay? Because that won't work. So, regarding the timing belt, Peugeot has shortened the intervals. Now, the timing belt needs to be changed every 6 years or 100,000 kilometers, depending on the versions and service campaigns, but with an inspection, of course. When you have your PureTech serviced, ask the mechanic to check the timing belt and its condition. And if he has any doubts, you change the belt. Don't ask questions. Plus, on this engine, it's relatively simple. You just need to open the oil filler cap to check the condition of the belt. Now, that's not on all PureTech engines, but on most of them. If you find that it's cracked or looks a bit weird, don't hesitate. Go straight to the garage. So then, when you have the belt replaced, ideally, the garage should do a thorough job. The operation needs to be done completely. Check and clean where necessary, because there's probably a lot of junk here and there. You don't just change the belt, thank you, goodbye. The real danger actually is all the debris, like I told you, that ends up in the oil circuit and in the oil strainer. And if you want to take advantage of the coverage, okay? If you want to be reimbursed, if you have a problem with your car, Since March 2024, Stellantis has implemented a warranty extension, a coverage policy. On the older PureTech engines, 1 litre and 1.2 litre under certain conditions, of course, and it can go up to 10 years and there's a mileage limit, often around 175,000 kilometers. If your PureTech is eligible for the warranty extension or compensation, it often depends on the maintenance conditions, invoices, and following the recommended service schedule. If you're missing an invoice or if you did maintenance late, you might miss out. Keep all the records. So, what should you avoid with a PureTech? Short trips, cold starts, because the oil gets dirty faster, it condenses, and obviously that's not good for the belt. If you usually drive just 3 kilometers to get bread, make sure to take longer trips regularly where you properly warm up the engine, at least once a week. If you have a new HN version, often paired with a 48-volt mild hybrid setup, but not exclusively. So yes, the chain solves the belt problem, but unfortunately it doesn't make the engine immortal. There are still some early issues with engines produced up to 2024. The camshaft, sprocket bolt, engine warning light, loss of power, abnormal noises, misfire, that's about it. There are still some problems. Whether it's a timing belt or a chain, oil is still the most important element in the engine. If you drive in the city, if you take short trips, if you push the engine when it's cold, you obviously increase the risk of clogging and premature engine wear. So, regular oil changes. Let the engine warm up gently. And no full throttle. Don't accelerate like crazy when the engine is cold. So, let's continue with the 1.6 litre THP. As you know, it's from PSA and Mini. We've already talked about it several times. Now, the known problems with this engine. Obviously, the THP has a big problem. It's the timing chain, the hydraulic tensioner can lose pressure, the chain stretches and shifts, and then of course that's engine failure. On top of that, you have heavy oil consumption, fragile turbos, and sometimes the head gaskets can also be unreliable. But to be honest, by 2026, the most recent versions have a lot fewer problems than before, even though it's still an engine that requires meticulous maintenance. So, if you want to drive a THP and have peace of mind, there are 3 things you really need to check: the oil, the timing chain, and the cooling system. A healthy THP shouldn't make any noise, alright? If you hear a ticking, a knocking sound when it's cold, an unusual noise at startup, or a metallic sound, in my opinion, there's a problem. And the problem is the chain stretching or loosening. In fact, the tensioner, the chain, the turbo, all of that depends on very good lubrication. So, obviously you avoid long intervals, okay? An oil change, same thing, always yearly, every 10 to 12,000 kilometers. With a quality oil, it's perfect for the THP. Now for the turbo, it's the same thing. You avoid pushing it hard when it's cold, like a jerk. It's basic, obviously, but it saves turbos. On this engine, you also need to keep an eye on the coolant level. An expansion tank, a hose, a thermostat housing. If you have a coolant leak, well, obviously that's kind of true for all engines. The head gasket won't like it. So you check regularly to make sure the level is good. Next, the THP uses direct injection. So the problem with direct injection and the issue with this THP is that the intake gets dirty quickly over time. So you have to be very careful. So obviously the first thing to do if you buy a THP is to check the invoices and make sure the maintenance was done on time. As I said, oil changes should be done quite frequently. And the best thing is if the timing chain has already been replaced. Because in reality, the THP is not a bad engine. It's actually a very good engine. But you see, it's very, very sensitive to maintenance. And finally, the THP obviously has a very bad reputation, which is often well deserved, especially with the first THP engines. But over time, PSA still made some changes and the latest THP engines are much more reliable. To conclude, if you want to buy a car with a THP engine, you should get the newest model possible. The timing belt, replace it if possible, that's better. And obviously, regular maintenance on time with the right oil. And when I say on time, I mean every 15,000 at most, that's perfect. So let's continue with the N47 found in BMW's 16D, 18D, 20D and 23D models. So the problems with the N47, as we know, are that sometimes it makes some not so nice little noises. Knocking, cicada sounds, chains rattling around, and sometimes it breaks, just like the THP. So how do you keep it running for a long time? It's a bit like the THP, it's the oil. Obviously, on a modern diesel, and even more so on the N47, you shouldn't mess around with the intervals. We do annual oil changes with the right oil as usual. I keep repeating it, but that's how it is. The goal is perfect lubrication for the chain, for the turbo, and for everything else. If you hear, I'm telling you, a cicada-like ticking or a metallic noise from the timing side, especially at certain RPMs, whether hot or cold, get it checked. You don't wait to see what happens, because otherwise it's going to end badly. Normally, there's a recall campaign to fix the issue starting from January 2015. So the N47, it's a diesel, so obviously it doesn't like a series of short trips when cold. Sure, the N47, but all other diesels too. You let it warm up, you take it on longer drives regularly, and you avoid always driving at 1200 RPM just because it uses less fuel. Yes, it's good when it uses less fuel, but engines don't like that. You need to drive a bit, you need to let the engines warm up, use quality diesel from time to time, and a good fuel filter. If you hear any noises, go to the garage. So, let's continue with an engine from Renault, the 1.2 TCE, or actually the 1.2 DIGT from Nissan. It's the same engine. Be careful, the problems are well known. This engine leads the world in oil consumption, with some users needing up to a liter every 1,000 kilometers. The piston rings aren't sealed, causing compression loss and sometimes engine seizure on the highway, and that really hurts. A class action lawsuit was filed in 2024. So, how can you keep your TCE for a long time, if possible? Well, it's going to be a bit like everything else. Obviously, keep a small can of oil in the trunk, and your best friend with this engine is your oil dipstick. So, the first thing to do is to check your oil level all the time. That's right, all the time, every 2 weeks. That's it. That's how it is. I know it's annoying, but that's how it is. You don't wait for it to beep. Often that's too late. As soon as you take a long trip, check your oil level. And when you have an engine that consumes oil, you do an oil change every year with quality oil and the quality filter, and especially oil that meets the standards. Blue smoke, smell of burnt oil, irregular idle, engine warning light, sudden increase in consumption, you go to the garage right away. You don't wait for the next service. And of course, you keep everything. You keep all maintenance invoices and documents, so if there's a problem, you can take action against Renault, though it may not be easy. The 1 liter TCE is definitely the worst engine on this list, because in the end, there's not much you can do to make it better. Let's continue with the 1 liter EcoBoost from Ford. First of all, this concerns the EcoBoost models with a timing belt made before 2020. After 2020, they switched to timing chains, so that already eliminates the problem of the belt soaking in oil. So otherwise, the 1 liter EcoBoost has two well-known problems. The belt, like I told you, which disintegrates and ends up clogging the oil strainer, and also issues with coolant loss that will inevitably lead to overheating. And we also have some head gasket failures, broken turbos, and high-pressure pump problems. In short, it's a real mess. So, how do you make your 1 liter EcoBoost last a long time? Well, there are 3 things to keep an eye on, as usual. Oil, belt, and cooling. For the oil, obviously, you need to use the right specification. I'll write it down here for you. And you never top it up with any oil other than the right one. Always use the correct oil, the one specified in the manual. If not, call your garage or call Ford. The wrong oil or oil that's worn out is exactly what this type of engine doesn't like. And of course, it can backfire on you if you want to complain and get a refund from Ford. For oil changes, obviously, same thing, at least once a year, every 10 or 12,000 kilometers. That way, you're safe, especially if you only drive in the city. I told you, clean oil on an EcoBoost with a wet belt is what's going to save your life. So, in the Ford maintenance schedule, there's a belt replacement at 240,000 kilometers for the 1 liter engines, but let's be honest. According to our sources, it's better to do it before 10 years and even before 100 or 120,000 kilometers. And be careful, because this wet belt on these damn 1 liter EcoBoost engines is a real pain to replace. Often, you can end up with a bill of 2,000 to 3,000 euros. I think it's 3,000 euros at Ford to do the replacement. If you buy a car with a 1 liter EcoBoost and the belt hasn't been replaced and the car is cheap, there's a reason for that, the timing belt, and of course, don't wait to get it done. That's true for all the engines in the video. Don't wait to replace the timing belt because when it breaks, it's going to be expensive. I said preventive maintenance is every 100,000 kilometers. And just like with the PureTech, the problem is the oil getting degraded by those little pieces of the timing belt that end up everywhere and prevent the engine from being properly lubricated. So, if you get the belt replaced, don't cut corners. The shop needs to clean everything. It's a lot of work, it takes time, it's expensive, but you have to do everything. Because if you replace a part but leave all the crap inside the engine, it's pointless. And of course, it seems obvious. But check if your car has an active recall. Just call your Ford dealer and ask if there's a recall simply by giving them your VIN number. So, usage tips are always the same. Obviously, you avoid pushing it hard when it's cold. Let it warm up gently, especially if you do short trips. So that doesn't cancel out possible design flaws, of course, but at least it helps avoid adding more problems. And as I told you, between 2019 and 2020, the EcoBoost gradually switched to a timing chain. And this also applies to many of the MHEV versions, so the mild hybrids. Now, it hasn't eliminated all the flaws, but it's still a lot better. So, to find out if your 1-liter EcoBoost has a wet belt or a chain, just take a look under the hood. If the turbo is mounted in front of you, in front of the engine, it's a belt. And if it's behind the engine, it's a chain. And if you're not sure, go to your mechanic. So, to sum up, if you have one of these engines, you're not doomed, unless you have a TCE, but you can't use it, you can't drive it. You can't have it thinking, well, whatever, I don't care, I won't do any maintenance. You can do that, but it's at your own risk. The real rule, and this goes for all engines, even the most reliable ones, is to stay on top of maintenance. Check the fluid levels, check the service history, and if there's a noise or something, go to the garage. With that, Happy New Year 2026 once again, and I'll see you very soon for the next video.